So, based on this episode and the first two episodes, I would say that Westworld Season 3 is by far and away the best season of Westworld so far, which is too bad because it seems pretty clear that audiences tuned out at some point between Season 2 and Season 3. I feel like there's a lot of different explanations being floated out for why people are quitting the show. My personal theory is that it's just not clear cut enough and it doesn't have that personal connection that you have with other shows. And what I mean by that is the show is ultimately about androids that are programmed to have personalities, but they don't really have personalities in their essence. And I feel like a lot of people, myself included, have to suspend a lot of disbelief to believe that there could ever be an android that would actually have the level of complexity of human emotion that a real human being does. Now, who knows what the future may hold, but I think that makes it hard to relate to these characters because they can literally be programmed with the flip of a button to have a different personality, as we saw with Teddy in Season 2. And I think that's just made it difficult for people to relate to them. And on top of that, I think that, a lot of people tend to underestimate how difficult it is for a casual viewer to watch Westworld, as I think it's pretty hard to just tune in and figure out what's going on. When you look back at Season 1, they literally had, in Dolores' story, they had two timelines going on in parallel, and they didn't differentiate them at all, and that was a twist. And to this day, people are still confused about what happened when in Dolores' story. So I feel like, if you're someone that has taken the time to study this all out and figure it out, and you're obsessed with Westworld, and that was something that you really studied, it might seem not that complicated to you, but to the average viewer, Westworld has always been kind of very, very deep waters to wade into. And I think that has dissuaded a lot of people from continuing after Season 2. I think that, the twists at the end of Season 2 might have just been a bridge too far for some people. I don't think the gap between seasons is what's causing the viewership for this show to drop off, because I think if that were the case, every show that had a long gap between seasons would see the viewership drop off, and that isn't always the case. So I think there's something here that's prohibiting people from becoming deeply invested and keeping them from coming back in large numbers. But as I said, I think this is the best season yet. This third episode was a building episode, which, the mid-season episodes of most shows, including Westworld, can be a little dull and not, they're just kind of biding their time for the big conclusion at the finale. But here I feel like we got some good character development. It expanded on the themes of the first two episodes. There wasn't a lot of major events, but I thought the most interesting thing for my money was the exploration of Hale's character, played by Tessa Thompson, who of course now is an android, and there are a lot of theories out there about who this android might be. I don't think it's Maeve, but that is a theory I've heard floated out there. If I had to guess, I forget what the character's name was, but there was a saloon maid in the first two seasons. I wonder if it's not her, but I don't really have strong evidence for that. That's just a feeling from the gut, so we'll see where they go with that. This episode built on the first two episodes. As I said, they took the scenes with Hale's character and they showed how she's struggling with the fact that she's taking on this other person's identity, this other person who is a monster. She's struggling with kind of these feral desires, which we see symbolized in how she's like practically tearing herself apart violently. We saw a scene that was pretty interesting with her and Vincent Cassel, which will have implications going forward, but it wasn't too revelatory in my opinion. Some people describe that scene as having a twist. I didn't really think there was a twist. I felt like it was just kind of more set up, but we'll see where that goes. I'm not entirely convinced that the Vincent Cassel character is that interesting yet. I think that Vincent Cassel is doing a fine job as an actor, but the character doesn't seem that overwhelmingly interesting to me, other than the power that he has as someone who has so much wealth and influence but has managed to remain anonymous, which is pretty impressive. I mean, dare I say impossible in our current global climate, but also interesting, I thought, were the scenes with Dolores and Caleb. I've enjoyed seeing her get to see a different side of humanity. I'm excited to see a little bit more optimism for humanity after season 1 and 2 really seemed to show humans in a very terrible light. And I feel like it's important to have a human character. For one thing, Caleb can actually die, which raises the stakes for the scenes with his character, the action scenes with him. You know they're not going to kill him that early in the season, but when they were dangling him off a building, you definitely felt his vulnerability and his pain more than you have felt with a lot of the android characters. And I appreciated the scene where Dolores, they've been, as I said in previous reviews, they've been really ramming home the parallels between the androids in the parks and between humans, and how even though we think we have choice, free will is not necessarily free if you don't really have options. And they showed how if nothing changes in the future, he's going to commit suicide at that location. Now, watching this episode, I kind of realized why Aaron Paul has had trouble getting a role that compares to Jesse Pinkman in Breaking Bad, and I think that the reason is he's Jesse Pinkman forever. Whenever you watch him in something else, you always think Jesse, which is fine. A lot of actors are good actors, even great actors, but don't have a lot of range, and I'd say that's kind of where Aaron Paul falls into. But he's given this shot a great adrenaline boost of energy and just given it a more emotional aspect to go along with the cerebral aspects that were already there. The production values are amazing. I love watching the after episode behind the scenes look at the locations that they're shooting at. It's really, really interesting. I highly recommend watching it. I appreciated the information they gave about how they designed the robots, which are really, really well done this season. The music was really good this episode. Rajaman Dwadi, amazing composer. I really thought that the music, particularly in the scene where Caleb and Dolores were on the walkway, was very, very well done, very emotive. And I have really appreciated the way that this season has moved away from the people monologuing in rooms that we've seen in previous seasons. And it's kind of gotten more invested into an actual plot with tangible goals that the characters are pursuing. And I think that that's a big part of what makes this season better than previous seasons. Is it's not just people giving philosophical monologues in rooms. There's still philosophy here, but it's much, much more integrated into the actual forward momentum of the story. So those are my thoughts on episode 3, but what did you think? Let me know in the comments, and if you're new to the channel and if you like what I'm doing, please subscribe. That's my review of Westworld Season 3, Episode 3.